It's time for our weekday show, Elko Live on KELK. I'm sitting across from one of my favorite people from the city of Elko, and that is Scott Wilkinson, our assistant city manager. Scott, you're always hard at work behind the scenes, and you lead a great team of inspiring people. So it's really a treat to get to sit with you and get an update on city news. Thanks, Scott.
Well, wow. Thank you for that introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, you've been at it for a while. I've been at it for a while, and sometimes it's just nice to be able to say thanks for everything that you do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Yeah, so I mean, with that, and we were taking a little trip down memory lane just about some of the really cool downtown projects, and I think we'll have time to talk about that. But what we'll do first is just kind of go over some recent action items that really stand out on the agenda and talk about some things you've been working on, if you'd like to.
Sure.
Sounds good.
So we have our December 12th meeting that we're prepping for. Looks to be a pretty light agenda. But we do have some recognition plaques and appreciation of a couple people who are retiring that have been with the city for a long time. So we have one person out of facilities and another from the animal shelter. We have Betty Neal from facilities and Vicki Cooper from the animal shelter. So we appreciate their service with the city, and we'll recognize them.
Oh, we love both those ladies. And Betty, that just means you have no more time now for theater projects.
That's probably correct.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then we'll have a brief presentation on 837 Idaho Street, the Elko Inn. So I'm not aware of a lot of new information with regard to that. Seems like it's kind of stabilized. We're trying to work through the amended nuisance order that the city had put on the property, and we're looking to, complete some background on quote security personnel unquote at the property. So they're not licensed security; they work for a firm that does some property management. I think under these type of circumstances for this group of people or business folks, and so I think we're working through that right now, and we'll just see if the council has any questions beyond that.
Kind of closing out the year on the Elko Inn. It's been declared a public nuisance, but I think, all entities are working together. Property owners are from out of state. I noticed there was one arrest there last week of a woman suspected of drug use and some other charges. So it sounds like people, the community, police are still keeping an eye on things. Yeah,
we are keeping an eye on what's going on there. And, myself, when I drive by it, I pay attention to it. The fencing's up. Things are, frankly, a lot more quieter than they were. That doesn't mean that there still isn't some illegal activity over there. It's the property owner's responsibility to address those things. We have that expectation that they will do that. And it's disappointing that, the law enforcement even had this issue at all. Frankly, there should be no issues over there, and that's our expectation. So we'll see if the council has any concerns with that. It is, considerably better than it used to be. And, the property as it stands today would not constitute a public nuisance. There's just not. We have activity, inappropriate activity that occurs in different areas of the community. Doesn't rise to a public nuisance level, but these guys, this group is under an order, and they need to address it.
All right, so an ongoing issue will take us into 2024, because this will be next Tuesday's meeting, the last meeting for the year.
Correct, yes. This is just one meeting in December to close out the year.
So do we have a paving project on the list, Ruby Vista paving?
So we'll have final acceptance for our Ruby Vista project.
Oh, good. It's done then. Yes,
yeah, it's finished up. So that was wrapped up, and so we'll be looking for the city council to take final acceptance on that project. And those are really the major items that we have on the agenda.
Well, that's good, other than to wish everyone good cheer going into the holiday season. And, of course, Wow. Buckle your seatbelts because 2024 is going to be a ride again, Scott, I'm sure. Yeah, definitely. So at least close to home, we'll have plenty of cool things to look forward to. Hey, we have a new community development manager, right? Would you like to talk about Ralph?
Yeah, so we welcome Ralph Negron on board. He actually grew up in the Elko area, graduated high school from Elko, and has spent most of his career with NV Energy as a project manager. And so we believe that skill set's really going to lend itself well to being a successful development manager. And then, he's familiar with the area also.
Ralph Negron, and he's already started, right?
Oh, yeah, he's been with us for a couple months. We had a public meet and greet last Thursday. I think it was pretty well attended for that type of event. And then there was an article in the paper. So Adela Harding had interviewed him, and it was a pretty good article.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is Ralph, would you want to describe maybe his role? It is significant. He does work with developers and builders property owners?
If we're starting with development from the ground up, for lack of a better way to characterize it, he's our point person. So if you're looking at a project, from the ground up, it would be best to contact Ralph directly. And then his role with the city is to, take a look at that and then involve the other various departments at the appropriate time through that process, whether that's utilities, planning, engineering, or the building department, fire department. Some projects we actually involve the police department, if a conditional use permit's required and there might be some security issues or things like that. But so that's his role, is to be that point person for the city of Elko, and and then as those projects progress, to make sure they're progressing in accordance with the city, state, or federal requirements, and then working with all the parties to advance projects.
All right, brand new Elko City Development Manager. So congratulations and welcome, Ralph. And I'm sure you can bring him on the radio someday. That would be great if you'd like to do that. We'd love it. Good. Yeah, you have a great planning and development team in the city, and of course led by Kathy Laughlin. I think a lot of her efforts, we'll be able to talk about some of those, showcasing that going into the new year on this program today. That would be great. This is also the time of year where we get maybe broken pipes or water leaks, Scott?
Yeah, so we've had 3 more significant breaks over the last week or so, and so we just urge people to be aware of that. And then of course, if we do have a water leak at this time of year, to be aware of ice around on the roadways, on sidewalks, or whatever. But yeah, be patient with us. We address them. We had one where crews were out almost all night long, trying to get that water leak contained and repaired and back in service. And so they get on the water leaks. They stay with them. Be patient with us, but also understand at this time of year you have those hazards associated with them.
So are water leaks weather related or maybe aging infrastructure?
Well, I would say all of the above. Typically we see more water leaks in the warmer months when we have more, higher demand. So it's a little bit interesting that we're seeing, this number of breaks, these type of breaks at this time of year. So on some of them, I would say, yeah, maybe aging infrastructure combined with colder weather. But a couple of them, it's kind of hard to know why. Could be the colder weather, but we really haven't had the frost penetration into the ground as of yet. So yeah, I would say my opinion, a couple of them are a little mysterious, but the infrastructure's been in place for quite a while. Some of it's older than other.
So it's always good to keep in mind that's what you're paying for when you pay your water, sewer bill, your light bill every month if you're a city resident, because that goes toward paying for new infrastructure. I know that I received at least one notice on a county property, Scott, but the federal government's embarked on this enormous task of having communities evaluate lead pipes, the source of, And that's going to be in the city too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're our utility director, Dell Johnson, and his group they're engaged in that process. It's going to be a significant program. It's going to require, the city utility department to evaluate not only its own infrastructure, but the infrastructure into the home. And then there's, some federal funding that's going to be available to address, removal and replacement of lead piping. So it's going to be a big undertaking. I think it'll present a pretty significant burden on the city's resources, personnel resources, just to, accommodate that program. So, and it's something that I believe within a year we will be undertaking that program. So,
Stay tuned, huh?
Yeah, and it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, Scott, especially those of us who live in, the so-called tree streets or even the South Side neighborhoods. These are neighborhoods, some of them are about 100 years old. I mean, dating back to the origins. It's likely you are going to find lead pipes, so plan now for this project. Yeah, and my understanding of it, even if you have, some of the older solder, even if the pipe material itself is okay, but you have some of these soldered joints, all of it has to come out and be replaced. So it's going to be a big program. All right. So obviously something we want to stay on top of because it will impact, significant population in the community of Elko. Or could. We have lots of new growth, which is always nice too, new homes. We love our older properties, but it does take an investment in them to keep them up. And we'll talk about some of I think, were there some subdivisions approved, Scott, or can you give us an update on what's happening? We had, more recently, we had the Mountain View townhomes, unit number 2, they call it, approved. That's up on North 5th Street. I believe it was 44 units. I may be mistaken about that. And then, of course, prior to that, and people may see the amount of dirt that's being moved up on Jennings, a couple subdivisions up there that have been approved, couple phases of Bergeron Village that have been approved up there. So those are pretty significant ones. We have an application now for Copper Trails, which is just down below the Monte Carlo apartments, for phase 3 of unit number 2. And I haven't even had a chance to look at that application, but I think it's a 10-lot subdivision there. So. And we still have the Ash Street property?
Yeah, that was recently approved. That's a townhome development there. I think that's 12 units. So that's been approved. They'll just need to pull building permits and start that project. All right. So we should start to see some of this stuff really happening towards spring? Well, I think a lot of it's moving forward now. So you can do a lot of work, in cold weather on a lot of these things. I know Mountain View Townhomes are still working on the townhomes in unit number 1. So they're building those homes now, and then they'll have their ability to move forward with unit number 2 as they in the spring and stuff like that. So I think you'll see the civil improvement side of things slow down a little bit during the colder weather. But the building construction, of course, would continue on. All right. And of course, the big commercial property, or I guess you would consider it, if it has a different designation, the temple, the LDS temple. Which is continuing on, and we're wrapping up Komatsu's phase out there. Just had a call here at lunch to come out for a final walkthrough so they can move forward with the C of O. And then down on Silver Street, we have Sandvik putting in a new facility. And so that project will continue through the winter months. Oh, wow. I think I missed that one. I'll have to go by. And then we have the charter school, which is... charter school. So that's progressing. They had some site improvements, a little bit of street improvement out on Silver Street. And I believe they'll be looking for a C of O sometime after the first of the year. So they have, I believe their older classes are at a different location pending a C of O. And so they would like to it'll be kind of a phased approach for them. So they'll move their older students into the facility, I believe, after the first of the year. And then after the end of this school year, I think they'll move the rest of the students over.
And that should allow for quite a bit of growth on that property.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember how many additional students they were looking at, but so I think they were at a few hundred, and maybe they were going to add another 70 or 80 as time went by.
So there you go. And C of O, just for listeners, certificate of occupancy, correct? Okay,
correct.
good. I'd make
Yes,
sure.
I should remember that.
That's all right. I'm glad I did.
I need to remember the audience, right?
That's okay. Talking with our assistant city manager, Scott Wilkinson, today. Any other commercial projects? Or, I mean, it's so cool. We have a new Thai restaurant. I mean, we have some new things, new places.
Yeah, you know, I'm more familiar with the larger ones right now. I usually have staff paying attention to the smaller details on the smaller projects. So with my civil engineer resigning, I will be a little more involved in all the projects going forward.
I know, so, Bob Tebow.
Yeah, Bob was with us over 9 years, did a great job for the city of Elko, did a lot of engineering for the city of Elko, and we'll miss his contribution for sure.
Definitely, but we already told Bob and Addie that we'll be seeing them doing other things. So I'm sure that it's exciting for them, and they actually follow in the footsteps of a lot of other, previous city folks who have gone on to make contributions to city projects from the private side. So it's
true.
It's not that uncommon.
Yep.
So he should be congratulated.
Yeah, and we'll miss Addie also. She did a lot, especially on the environmental side for us, but she did a lot of different things, really headed up like clean up, green up, for years now. I've been able to just rely on her to execute on that event. So yeah, this year I'll have to pay a little more attention to it and enlist some additional help to pull that off.
And that's key, enlisting additional help, Scott. So we all need help, and I'm the same way. So that's good to know. So again, this opens the door for other opportunities, and I know we still have time to talk about some cool projects coming up in spring, or applications that will open in January. But there are some significant job openings in the city that you wanted to mention.
Yes, so we have several job openings right now. Civil engineer is one that's opened. I believe just yesterday we posted for facility maintenance technician. That's a 4-person department, so we're looking for somebody who is a go-getter that could help out in that department. We have a water sewer laborer operator, 1 through 3 positions open. We have a WRF technician trainee, 4 position open. We have a part-time accounting technician position open, and we have patrol officer positions open, 1 or 2 on those. So yeah, we have a lot of job openings right now. In my opinion, the city of Elko is a great employer, and it's a great place to work.
Yeah, we hear that a lot too. Even folks that, maybe have appreciated the mining wages, but they're looking for just a little different quality of life, right? Close to home, shorter commute.
Yeah, and I think our pay scale is competitive. I think our benefits are competitive. So I would encourage people who are thinking about looking for employment to check with our HR department and on our website.
Talking with our assistant city manager, Scott Wilkinson, here on Elko Live today on the City Show. And it's probably a good segue to Scott because then we'll roll into some of these special events that we're having, because the city often permits these events, or, make sure that they're going to be safe venues, which we know the huge Snowflake Festival will be this weekend. But January, the new year, brings new opportunity for especially property owners in the city to apply for some initiative money, right? Yeah,
we have our storefront program that will application period opens up in January. We'll have an RDA meeting on December 12th prior to the city council. I believe it starts at 3 or 3:30. I can't remember the exact start time, but We will be making some revisions to that storefront application. I think they're pretty minor in nature. I think we wanted to clarify, really for the applicants, our expectations on what we would see on those applications, what types of improvements or changes to your storefront are eligible for that funding. Mm-hmm. So it's a good program. I think it's been really successful for Elko. And then, kudos to the private property owners who didn't even apply for that. But what we've seen is, we've seen some of these storefront projects go forward, and then you've seen other private investment in downtown Elko. And so, it's catching in a way. And I think it's really benefited downtown Elko. And, you and I were just talking about, I live in the Spring Creek area, and so I'm not in Elko all the time. But my wife, Kim, and I were driving through the downtown area at a twilight time. And, you just notice the difference when you don't see it all the time. So there's been a lot of progress made.
Yeah, and more to come. We know in talking with our city planner, Kathy Laughlin, she has already lined out the project for 2024, the big sidewalk renovation down at 4th and Railroad Streets.
Yeah, so on that project, the design, and again, kudos to Bob doing this in-house. He was pretty close to finishing that project up, the design of that project. Pretty complicated. Our downtown area is very complicated. So you think, oh yeah, let's just go replace some sidewalk. It's not that simple. We have drainage issues. Then we get into the utility issues that are underground. It's an older part of town. It's complicated, and so a lot of time and effort went into that design. We have to wrap that up. And then the RDA took action to, establish an improvement district. And so Kathy's job, once that design is complete and we have an engineer's estimate, is to reach out to all those business owners and see how successful she might be in establishing that district. If we're not successful in establishing an improvement district, then we'll have to present that back to the RDA and see if they'll fund the entire project.
Because right now it is a funding increment, so it's not an actual general improvement district?
Right. So this is a tax increment, for the RDA, but they're looking to create another improvement district within that.
Okay.
So the city did that one time on some sidewalk on a block area down there. It's a pretty complicated process. We'll see how that works out as we try to move that forward. And I know Kathy's done some research, places like Reno. They're pretty aggressive on private property participation and maintenance of sidewalk and things like that. So she has all that information, and we'll try to move that forward. But what we'll have to do here is finish up that design. So we have probably 90% plans, but we'll have to finish those up and get an engineer's estimate on them.
Well, it's nice to see that kind of work, because not only does it inspire the private property owners to make their necessary improvements, I mean, they get excited about doing it. As you said, they see neighboring property, whether it's a facelift or actually improving infrastructure. And Kathy was talking about, changes to some of the initiatives to enhance infrastructure within the older buildings. For example, if you have a historic building that's not ADA compliant, there might be some funds available.
Right. So we established a program, I think it was this last summer. So we established that program and opened that application period. I think it was in July, and received 0 applications.
They didn't know about it. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There was quite a bit of public involvement as we went through that process. So, but yeah, it may take time. Our storefront program took a little bit of time to, get geared up and really get going. But we've had good applications on that. Bottom line is we have a program that's out there that possibly can be utilized to help out on some of these things. With the goal there is to see, some of the buildings where people might struggle either leasing a building or maybe you own a building and you need to repurpose that building, and you run up against these new code issues or federal government mandated issues such as ADA compliance, things like that. There's a little bit of money out there that might help get over that financial hump and see a successful business go in.
You've seen a lot of changes since the RDA was implemented. They had a plan for at least the last 5 years and really achieved most of those goals, if not all.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it's been about 5 years. It may even be 6 or something like that. But what we did is the overall project under our RDA plan is to, enhance our corridor area. And, we had some false starts on what that might look like, but we have to afford what we propose. And so we had some false starts. We, regrouped and took a look at, our projected revenues, finalized our designs, and then we broke that design up into projects. Phases, you might say. And so we presented that to the RDA. It's been adopted. We presented projected costs at the time. Of course, they're clearly dated by now. But we've been methodically going through what the RDA has approved to enhance our corridor. And the end result, which takes, several decades to get accomplished, will be there in the end.
Well, in fact, it leads to the big DBA, Downtown Business Association celebration. It's the way they give back to the community for all the local support throughout the year, in which they host what's called the Snowflake Festival, Scott.
Right. That's this weekend on Saturday, 12 to 5, and the Parade of Lights starts at 5:30.
It's a great way to get out and enjoy the very corridor you're describing. They're going to have food trucks set up and some other merchants.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big event for Elko each and every year. So I think it's well attended. A lot of people appreciate that event.
And, really looking at things like the Chamber of Commerce, they kicked off the season with the tree lighting last Thursday, Scott, and the college is hosting the Winterfest tomorrow night on campus at GBC. Corey's Market in Spring Creek out there at the marina hosted a huge fireworks show and community celebrations. So there's a lot that you can take in, and it's either low cost or no cost for the most part, other than just getting yourself there.
That's correct, yeah. It's a good community effort.
So we really do have to thank, though, the people that make it possible with the infrastructure. And I've lived in Elko, a long time. And when I first moved here, we didn't have some of these amenities, Scott, and individual businesses couldn't afford to pay for them by themselves. It really took the investment, by the communities. The city, even Spring Creek Association's been steering some resources that way so that people have the confidence to do that, to make their own investments. So.
Yeah. And it's good to see successful business owners, that step up and put up the financial assistance or, completely put up the financial cost or bear that financial cost for some of these events.
Well, speaking of, I think we can close with what was probably super exciting news. I was sorry I couldn't get there Friday, but I was hosting the BLM on the radio show. You guys had a ribbon cutting for the CRJ 900 at the airport. How did that go last Friday?
Well, I didn't attend, but I hear it went well. So, this is a plane that really is going to provide, an upgrade to air service for the community of Elko. So it's a 76 passenger plane, dual class. And we're excited about it. We think that, the service that we have now and the connectivity that we have now with Salt Lake is really going to enhance, the air service for in and out of Elko.
And we want people to fly Elko because selling those seats reduces the city's minimum revenue guarantee, our obligation.
Right.
Yeah, it's
we've
important.
had that in place for quite some time now.
Yes.
So, but yeah, we would encourage, anybody to utilize our air service. And, Frankly, sometimes there's some really good deals out there. So one time my wife and I were looking at a vacation, going to fly out of Salt Lake, planned well in advance, happened to check air service out of Elko, combining that, and got a really screaming deal. You hear about the cost sometimes, but sometimes it's, there's opportunity out there.
Yep,
So,
totally worthwhile. FlyElkoNevada.com.
Right.
That's the website. Jim Foster and his crew, and I say crew because he has very small staff.
Yes.
Oh, boy. They
Yeah,
do it
they
all.
work hard out there,
Yeah, they do.
especially during inclement weather and things like that. So definitely has a great staff, a responsive staff, and makes it successful for everyone.
Well, Scott, I hope we got to the topics today that you brought with you. The other things left on, well, I know we have cold weather issues, right? And you've been working a lot with the homeless over the last decade or so.
So we're gearing up for that. Usually we see, so the way we do that is look at the temperatures, wind chill or ambient temperature, and if we're going to have 0-degree nights, we hopefully have engaged a hotelier that will open up rooms if they're available. They may or may not have rooms available. We've been somewhat successful. We've had, over the last couple of years, we've had just one hotelier who's interested. But they typically will have rooms available. So not a lot, maybe 4 or 5, sometimes 6 rooms available when we call. But if rooms are available, they're no cost to people who are homeless and need to get out of the weather. And if we're successful and enter into that contract for that emergency cold weather declaration, we'll post that with Fish. They'll put it on their Facebook, and then we put it on the Facebook page for the city. The dates that we have and the number of rooms available. First come, first serve. You have to abide by the hotelier's rules and regulations that they have. And it's worked pretty well over the last couple of years.
Things going okay out at the humanitarian camp?
Well, it is what it is. Probably as good as anything you see on the news anywhere else. We'd like it if they would keep things a little more tidy and things like that, but it's just kind of a nature of the beast. They collect everything and haul it down there. So spend a lot of time collecting things and hauling it down to the camp. And it does not help when the public uses that as their dumping site rather than take stuff to the landfill. So we have a lot of people who might take stuff down there that is absolutely no use to anybody down there, and they drop it off. And at some point when we can get some better video surveillance on that property, those people that do that will have law enforcement knocking on their door.
Saying, come collect your old sewing machine, because they're certainly not using it at the humanitarian camp.
They may get a ticket for littering or something like that too. Sure,
exactly. Well, understandable.
Illegal
Scott.
dumping.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of a big deal. But we encourage people to call my number if you have anything that you would like to drop off at the camp.
Oh, good, Scott. What's your number?
It's 775-777-7211.
Okay.
And if they give me a call, I've had people call, they've had clothing, they've had wood, I talk to them about, well, what's the size of the wood? Has it been split? Because dropping off big portions of
tree
trunks does not do most people any good down there. They can't wheel it around, they can't split it.
They don't have chainsaws.
So we encourage people to keep that in mind, and I have some people call, and then the ones that don't have anything of real value to the people down there don't call.
Yeah. Well, we will try to help you get the word out, Scott. Thank you. You've been helping the city interface with the homeless now for a good decade or so that I'm aware of, so probably longer. Appreciate that. So
it's probably been about a decade.
Yep.
Yeah.
And thanks to Fish, Friends in Service Helping, I know that they're doing their regular food dispersion. They're making sure people
Yeah,
have food.
it's amazing to me, and I don't know all the services that they provide, but, on occasion, I've just been down there when they've been providing services, and it's astonishing to me the number of people that require those services in our community. It's an eye-opener.
Hundreds
Yes,
and
yeah,
hundreds, if not
yeah.
thousands.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's an eye-opener.
Well, Scott, thank you for the work that you do. And I wish you and Kim a very joyous holiday season and many rewards for all your hard work.
Well, thank you.
Both
And
of
Merry
you.
Christmas to you and to your public.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, listeners. We'll get updated on city news in advance of next week's regular council meeting on Tuesday, the 12th. Scott Wilkinson's been our guest today. He's the assistant city manager and our guest on Elko Live on KELK.